What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast, Raising Hell to Heaven.
Heaven. And I'm Kate. And we have with us today our special guest, Mimi Dara, the founder of Maison Palo Santo. Excited to have you on the show.
Yay.
Hey guys, some Palo Santo for us. Little cleansing for your feed today, everybody.
I can almost smell it.
It's funny how the brain works, right?
Yeah, it's wild.
Kate, I have a little, she gave away a car air freshener. So every time I get in my car, I think of her. It's great. I'm like, it's so good. But yeah,
Amazing.
so today I wanted Mimi to come on here because we were at an event, a girly event, which we love, supporting each other's missions. And she started telling us her beautiful love story, and it's so good. I was like, I need this on film immediately because we teach so many things about, you must do this and you must do that in order for love to work out. And one of the biggest things I've learned is, in a lot of ways, that's not true. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have been like, if you want to meet the right person, you need to be either doing yoga or at the gym or at church, like that. And then I finally realized it's not physically where you are, it's emotionally, mentally, spiritually where you are. And then you can be anywhere. You can be at a club, you can be at church, you can be on a beach, you can be outside on the street. You could literally be anywhere. So I love these stories. I love success stories. So please, Mimi, without ado, tell us your beautiful love story.
So I call it my Casablanca love story. And this all started it really started in April of 2013. I was in a long-term relationship with somebody that was like my best friend, and we were very similar. We both worked in hospitality. We both liked the same music. We both liked the same activities, the same food, that we had the same circle of friends. And it just all kind of came crashing down after about 7 years. I think that if I had been who I am now, as we get older, we realize that it probably could have ended a lot sooner because I don't think it was the healthiest of relationships. We weren't really promoting each other to promoting the best in each other. And so it got a little bit ugly and it completely ended on April 1st, 2013. And I just remember it being April Fool's Day and just saying, this isn't a joke, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And we broke up and we never saw each other, texted each other, emailed, phone called, or reached out on social media. Never once.
Ever again.
And ever again. To this day. Hard stop.
Wow.
I mean, so already the situation was like, it was insane.
Yeah.
Then I went to online dating, which was because I was hurt and I was lonely and I was sad. So I was on Tinder for like a month, which at that time was like the app, right? And it was so crazy. I had crazy experiences on that. Weird things were happening. I opened myself up to energies that were like, they were young people, they were old people, they were like, oh my God, this is so crazy. And at the time I had my two dogs, my two Brussels Griffons, Abelinda and Francine, and I had them for a very long time. They were like my family, And I was just looking at the dogs and kept saying, you know what, guys, it's just you and me. We are the Threes Company and we're living on 103rd Street in Central Park West, and this is our life and this is it, guys. This is it. We are a family. And I just remember it being a heat wave.
Yeah.
And had like a month or two had passed. So this was just the beginning of June. And I was getting kind of ready for my birthday mentally, which I think is different as we get older. We're like, oh God, my birthday's coming.
Yes.
And then people are always like, oh my God, my birthday. So I was getting ready and like making plans in my head, like what I wanted to do for my birthday. And it was a heat wave. And I just kept thinking about how hot it was going to be. And we were going to go to the beach. And I take my dogs, and I'll never forget, I was wearing jean shorts with like a button up side zipper, which are my favorite shorts, high waisted. And I had this like little crop top thing on, and I was just like feeling cute. And I walked out and I had the dogs, and I see this man. I can still see it as if it was happening right here, right now. Literally, I just saw him and I was like, my God, I was like, don't even do it, Mimi. Don't go to that guy. And it was just like a laser beam of energy from heart to heart. And I was like, "Pew." And I was like, hi, I'm Mimi. What's your name? I was like, are you lost? Because he had this like map. And now that I know him, I'm just like, what was he doing with that map? He's like, I was like, he can't read a map. I'm like, were you like, what was that? Was that like a cartoon? Was that like a piece of like the
You
comics in
guys,
the
like, look
newspaper? He's like,
lost and helpless.
he's like, he looked a little lost and obviously was not from there. And I was like, oh my God. So I was like, I work in the number one restaurant in New York City, which at the time I did. And I was like, you should come and be my guest. Just come to the bar tonight. And he was like, okay. I was like, but first I'll show you around. So I showed him all over my area of the park. We spent like 3 hours together. We were sitting under this tree. We were chatting. I was telling about my life in Ecuador and my plans. I was like building this center, which is what my current business is from. But it was such a transitional phase in my life. I was like free and single and doing all these crazy business things and having a great job and loads of friends. And I was just feeling really good.
Yeah.
And so I was had this like high energy and he was just like listening a lot, looking at me and listening. And I was like, okay, I gotta go. And I just left him and I went to work. Because at that time I could just go, like, I dropped off the dogs
Yeah.
and I told him, meet me tonight. And he came to the restaurant and he came, and this was a very fancy restaurant. And I remember he came in this t shirt and he looked so, it's like one of these guys that like, it doesn't matter what the dress code is. Like they could come in the t shirt and they just like look good. And I'm like, okay, fine. He walks in, I sit him down. I'll never forget Sam, that was the bartender's name. And he saw him and he saw me. And I just saw him look to the person next to him. She was like, Mimi is going to eat him alive, literally. And because that was just like my energy, I was just like, boom, boom, boom. I had this crazy high energy at that moment in my life. And so we went out that night. I took him to all my favorite places. I showed him all the restaurants that I like to go to. And I was like, let's hang out tomorrow. So he came back tomorrow. We hung out again. I took him to other places. I was showing him all my life. I was showing him, introducing him to all my friends. He was having, it seemed like a really great time. And a thing happened, which he told me later on in our relationship. One of the reasons why he came to see me that third night was it was really, really warm because I told you it was like a heat wave in that first week. And we walked back to my apartment and I lived in a 4-story walk up and, I didn't know him well. So I was like, just wait for me here 1 second. I got to get you something. So I ran up the stairs and I came down with 2 big cups of ice water.
Okay.
And I gave him a cup of ice water. And he told me later on, like 6 months later, he's a Scorpio, so they come out with stuff like, a year later. And I'm a Gemini. So I'm like, listen, I forgot about that like the minute it happened. Now you're telling me about this? Like, try to speed it up, dude. Speed it up next time. Try to catch up, keep up. And so he just felt so touched by that I would go up and walk up the flight of stairs at like really late at night. It was like, 2 in the morning because we get out of work really late. And I guess it really touched him. Well, he started sending roses to the restaurant and then meeting me at the employee entrance, which is in the back, because at first he was coming through the front and then became, a little friendlier. So he was meeting me in the back and we would go out afterwards and my friends were kind of seeing what was happening and they were just like, oh my God. And I was like, and I was introducing him to everybody as my boyfriend. I was like, this is my new boyfriend. And he was loving every second of it, right? But it was very fun and joyful. And he was very kind. And it was something that I had never been exposed to, that kind of genuine kindness. And he kept asking me questions like about my family, like not like, oh, what do you like to do? What do you like to eat? Like how many boyfriends you have. Like he didn't ask me any question that the regular men that I had dated or whatever had ever asked me. He was asking me about my family. He was asking me about what I loved to do when I was a kid. He asked to see he was like, show me pictures of you when you were a kid. And I would like showed him like a couple of pictures and I didn't realize that he had like taken a screenshot of one of them. And we'll get back to this part later. But so basically a couple more days went by and he was staying around the corner and he went to go do some, touristy things that he had planned. And I said, hey, listen, have you ever heard of the Hamptons? And he was like, no, he was supposed to continue his voyage up to Canada. He's from Morocco, Casablanca. So he had gotten a visa also to travel to Canada. And when you're from Morocco, it's a bit difficult to get a visa for the United States. So that was already kind of like a big deal. So he had gotten also the visa to go to Canada. So he was really excited. And I remember we were talking about that, but I was like, forget Canada. Come to Long Island. Come to the Hamptons. We're going to meet. I'm sure there's going to be people from Canada there. It's a little bit colder. It's fresher. You know, it's like I was selling it hard, right? And so I remember we took the Jitney from 86th Street, the Hampton Jitney, which is a bus that takes you from the Upper East Side to the Hamptons on Long Island. And we went to West Hampton, which is not like the fanciest part, but it's where we know somebody who had a house. And I showed up and we had a very eclectic group of friends. It was like one guy was like covered in tattoos with like big holes in the ears with the big earrings. My best friend, Ellie, from the restaurant. And just, we had this like whole group. It was a mixed match. It was very New York. It was just like, I was like, this is our group. And my friend was really mad at me actually, because she was like, I can't believe that you brought this guy that you just met to our weekend. You know, you just broke up and now you're like with this guy. And I was like, listen, I was like, it's making me happy. So get over it. So we went there. And at the time I was hosting a lot of dinners and I would make like this tomate farci dish and we would do like stuffed tomatoes and we would do like plates of food. And we made this fabulous dinner and we had the most epic weekend. We were there for 4 days and I kind of fell in love with him. He was so kind and nice and sweet and genuine. And I felt like he couldn't tell a lie if it like hit him in the face. Like if he needed to tell one, he couldn't even do it. Like the words couldn't even come out of his mouth. He was making us laugh. We went on this boat. We sunk a boat by mistake because somebody had to pee on the boat and they opened the drain and they like peed through the hole. I don't know if you guys have ever done this on a boat. Sorry, everybody, TMI. But she peed through the hole and forgot to close it. We sunk the boat in the Hamptons. Oh, literally a 17-foot motorboat, you know, like with the engine. We have to pull out the boat on a pulley with my friend's Honda Civic. We're from New York. We don't know anything about cars. So we're like pulling this boat. He's helping us. You know, you have these bonding experiences. We're like, high five, we got it. We ended up having to pay this crazy fine because when you sink a boat, you have to pay per foot, $100 per foot, because it's like it hurts the environment when the boat sinks, right, with the gasoline. So I was so worried about that. But anyway, we figured it out. So we all became very close. We bonded through this experience and we went back to New York after that. And Red went back to Morocco and we became very close. I remember like at that time, like we weren't using WhatsApp or anything yet. It was Skype. So we were like Skyping all the time and we started visiting each other back and forth. I would go to Casablanca and he would come to New York and I brought him to my mom's house. She was living in Jersey. I made up this whole story for my mom, like total lie. I was like, oh, this is my friend that I've known for a long time. I worked with him for a really long time. And she was like, what? And then he was like, we just met. And I was just like, oh my God, dude. I was like, okay, this is a trait that we're going to have to manipulate a little bit because we're going to have to, you know, like when my mom is around, we're going to have to just like zip it and like, just like, you know, go with the flow. So,
like you said, though, you can't tell a lie. And
well, that's what I'm saying. And that was just like, it kept like being reinforced. Like, okay, this guy's awesome. You know, he's so sweet. My mom was just like, fell in love with him. She loved him. She loved him from the very beginning. So fast forward like 6 months, it's Christmas. At that point, we had known each other for about 7 months and it was Christmas time, right? From June to whatever that is to Christmas. And he surprised me on New Year's over Christmas. He came, he organized my mom and my best group of friends. And he took them to this comedy special at Joe's Pub, which is this like iconic place in New York, the Sandra Bernhardt comedy special, which is like, and my family, like nobody speaks English well. Nobody understands. I was like, did anybody even understand one joke? They're just like laughing and clapping. Nobody knows what's happening at all. I'm like, you guys are a mess. It's New Year's Eve. I show up like, you know, from the restaurant with, you know, with a bottle of Vide Carcemont rosé champagne in my hand. You know, it was like one of those nights. I had the chef with me from the restaurant because we couldn't get another taxi for her. So I dropped her off at 16th Street and I was like, come in because supposedly my mom is here or something. So I went in and he proposed to me on New Year's Eve with a locket, not even a ring, a locket that he bought at the museum. I'm like, this is getting really weird. So my friend is there with her phone, like, oh my God, I got to get this on camera. It's like, and I still have it. I have it on a USB. Like it's a grainy USB video. And I'm wearing like all of this like crazy stuff from the restaurant, like the cheap New Year's Eve stuff, because I'm extra, so I got to have like the hat and the things and the chains and the beads. I mean, I've got everything. I got it wrapped around me, wearing the face mask. And my mom comes to me and she's like, do you understand what's happening? And I was like, yes, I'm getting married to Red. And from that moment forward, that was 9 months or something like that. The next day, he went back to Morocco on the 1st. I had to go to a sober, gluten-free, vegan, ugly sweater Christmas party. That was the title of it. I mean, it couldn't be more messed up, right? I mean, for me at that time, like now it would be fine. But at that time I was like, okay, so it's vegan, it's gluten-free, it's sober, and I have to wear an ugly outfit. Okay, no problem. So I show up and I've got a locket and I'm telling everybody, I was like, I got engaged. And they're like, where's the ring? I was like, I have a locket. They're like, where's the man? I was like, he's on a plane. They're like, yeah, I don't know about this engagement. I don't know. It's like, is this a real thing? So fast forward, me and my mom go to Morocco and we have like an official meeting with his family and we just have this wonderful, beautiful connection, bonding. And it was really, really special. And I looked at my mom at a certain point because we've been through a lot with our own family. And I looked at her and because we're kind of funny in our family. And I said, who would have known we had to come all the way to Morocco to have a family dinner? And she laughed and I was like, we should come here more often. And we traveled all around Morocco together. And he was just so funny. I was like, okay, can we ride camels? And, he's from Casablanca. He's like, okay, great. I was like, okay, so can you show me? And he was like, I've never ridden a camel. Don't be so stereotypical. Like I'm from Morocco. I don't ride camels like on the weekend. He was working a Dell. Like it was a regular life. And he came. We never lived together before we got married. We had never spent more than 2 weeks together at a time. And he came to New York. He moved in. I filled the apartment with red balloons. We don't have a lot of money, and I filled the apartment with red balloons from the, these budget discount stores that they have in New York everywhere. And they were filled with helium. And so when you open the door, it was just like red balloons came shooting out into the hallway on 85th Street between 2nd and 3rd. We lived in this little studio apartment and we just got married 2 weeks later at City Hall. Ended up being the same date that my mom and my dad got married. And she looks at me, she didn't even know it. And she looks at me, this is so my mom, she was like, I hope it goes better for you. I was like, thanks, Ma, no problem. Great. But it's fine. We had 17 people show up at City Hall for our wedding. It's like, and you have to it's such a New York experience. I wore a white DKNY, white suit outfit, white shoes, white sunglasses, with a white lily in my hair. We took the train. I'll never forget. I opened the subway car open. It was obviously we were going to go get married. And this guy that was on the train, I'll never forget him. He was like, girl, it's the lily that did it. And I was like, yes. And he gave me such a boost of confidence.
Yeah.
I felt so good. We got married in City Hall, which is, the neighborhood that I lived in for a really long time. And we had just a wonderful group of people of all of our friends there. We ended up partying and hanging out that night in New York. And then on August 28th, which was the only date that we could do it, which is my dad's birthday, who has passed away, was the only date. And that's why I could feel it kind of like being channeled, right? And on August 28th, we had our wedding party with 30 people at that same house in the Hamptons. So we had our first date at. It was a pool party.
Yeah.
And my mom did the food and my friend was the DJ and the restaurant made me a beautiful cake and sponsored us with cases of wine and champagne. And we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. And after that, we ended up going on our honeymoon, like 2 years later, to our place in Ecuador for a month. And that's kind of when our journey went beyond partners and went into business partners. And we have now been married it'll be 11 years this coming May. And we've kind of grown up together. And we call it the Red and Mimi Show, episode 11.
Yeah.
Because whenever people come around us, they just start laughing because we are absolute opposites, you guys. Like absolute opposites. He is very calm and stoic and quiet. And he says things to me like, we don't all need constant affirmation, but good job. And he reads me so much. And one of the things that made me fall in love with him, you guys, going back, circling back to that picture, is towards like kind of like in the middle of our relationship before he asked me to marry him or anything like that, he would hold up this picture of me from when I was like 7 years old, and I had buck teeth, and I had one of those like cloth felt headbands, and I had one of those dresses with the big doily ruffle here. I look terrible, right? It's like the worst school picture. It's like the lighting is off. It's like, who are these photographers? Like, I thank God that doesn't exist anymore. And he was just like, I know you think you're tough, but this is who you are. And I was like, ooh, nobody ever challenged me like that. He challenges me in a way that makes me realize that I am not this external shell of a person that we have to put on to go outside so that we can like sell things, do things, make impressions, be, strong. It's a coping mechanism that I've done my whole life, to be this like very tough outer shell, when inside truly I'm like a marshmallow.
Yeah.
I'm like really soft. I'm very kind. I care about people genuinely, and I do get my feelings hurt deeply. I might not show it a lot, and I laugh it off a lot. And there's so many different ways that I get rid of that pain. But he's been my confidant. And he is like, we always say, we move around a lot. We moved to New York a bunch of times, and we moved to Austin. We live in Ecuador. We're always on the move. And that's just because we have each other, and that's what the home is. It's just a home. Like when I go home, like now, even after all this time, I go home, and after a long day, I just open the door and I just put my arms like this, and he just hugs me for 5 minutes in quiet, and then I can move on with my life. And he's the only person that can make me feel like that. So I don't know how he did it, because we're very different. But I would say that I think that what I learned from this experience is that just being open with no attachment to the outcome is always the best thing that we can do. We've made a lot of mistakes, especially, maybe we haven't been the best with finances in the beginning, or, maybe we should have done things differently. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that we still have each other, and that we're still on this, grand mission of life, no matter where it takes us. And the next part of our relationship, what I want as a milestone, we used to be very codependent, where we would really need each other to function mentally, emotionally. And now we are interdependent. We have co-created, and we're able to work together well, because we also work together sometimes. And so we've created this really good symbiotic relationship. But now, we go sometimes, like he'll go 1 month, I don't see him, or I'll go to Ecuador and it'll be, a while. And we'll go days even without speaking. It's so much trust, so much love, so much foundation. So what I want us to do next is we're going to go on this epic adventure. At first I was like, the 10-year anniversary is what everybody cares about, right? It's like, it's like the 10 years, but I think we're going to do 11 because I missed 10, and now we're going to put a spin on it. Like 11, it's good. It's 11 is the new 10, right? I got to put a spin on it to make it okay. But we're going to do an 11-year anniversary. And what I would like to offer us is to go on a 3-month adventure. And I go to India for a month, and he goes to Vietnam for a month because he's always wanted to go there. And then we'll meet in like Bali or Indonesia on the 3rd month, so we can kind of like rediscover ourselves on a deep level outside of our own zone, outside of our family place, because whenever we go to Ecuador or to Morocco, we're like doing a lot of family stuff, a lot of bureaucratic stuff, responsibilities, getting things done, moving and shaking. And I just want us to really have these 2 deeply calming spiritual experiences, and then come together for 30 days and just pure relaxation, which we haven't had in a really long time since that honeymoon.
Right.
And that's just what I see as the vision of the future. And
That's beautiful.
so that's the Casablanca love story.
Thank you so much for sharing. And just each unique detail is just so beautiful, and just shows like the depth of your soul and what you're noticing and what you're accepting. And I think Kate and I were just talking about this yesterday. The biggest thing, like you said, it wasn't about outcome. It was never about like, well, I'm going to talk to this guy on the street because maybe that could be my husband. Like you were just being in your moment. And you, like you said, you were so good here. You were doing so
Right.
well and so filled up with your own life and your journey and your work, and you have your puppies, and you were like, I'm good. And that's when it comes. That's when you attract it. And that's when it's just easy because you didn't have those expectations. And I'm sure he felt that, right? He didn't feel like this pressure. It was just love and joy and adventure and experiencing life together, right? I love this idea that you're doing for the 11-year anniversary. Like that is
Yeah.
super epic. I spent 2 months total in the end in Thailand. So yeah, Thailand,
Mm,
Bali, there's just something about it. It's
yeah.
they slow down.
Yeah. I've never been to any part of Asia. So that's why, and him either. We've never been to any part of Asia. So it's like that
That'd
would
be
be,
phenomenal.
and just as like a yoga person
Yeah.
that has been teaching for so many years, I would just love to have that experience and to just be there
It's
and be of service if I can.
Yeah, it's so zen. It's so like I actually came back completely changed because it's just the pace of life, and especially if you're there with your love, like you wake up at a slow pace, no one's in a rush. You don't feel that energy. It's not coming from anywhere. Everyone's like,
Right. Ah,
and then you go like
uh,
eat breakfast and do yoga on the beach, maybe go in the water. No, like just no pressure, no outside pressure, all love. People actually look at you, care about you. And it's like obviously Asia's kind of large, but the
right.
communities within little patches are so personal, and you start to like it's the same vendor at that little shop that you see every single day, and it's that community. And so I mean, that what a perfect way to like, what's the word, button book end your
Yeah,
beautiful
like book. Yeah, exactly.
chapter of your beautiful love story as you embark on the next. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for sharing that with us. I mean,
Thank you for listening. It's so nice to talk about it because I don't, sometimes we get so busy and we get so like caught up in what we're doing to, progress
yeah,
that we forget kind of like where we came from and what the journey is and just like the little moments. And I think as we look back on life, that's when they become more special.
yeah,
So I'm trying to really be in the moment lately and be like, okay, no, these are the special moments. Like these are the good times. Like these are the times when we look back and be like, oh, okay, like remember when,
yeah,
like even the most, and sometimes the most challenging
yeah,
times come back is like, remember when, like at that time when I had that 4-story walk up, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I got to go up these fucking steps again. Jesus Christ. I forgot my keys. That's why when when I moved to Austin, and we had an elevator, which is like, is not given in New York. Okay.
yeah,
But Austin is such a new city, and I
yeah.
lived in this building downtown. And I remember forgetting my keys on purpose upstairs because I would be like, it's okay because I'm going in the elevator. And I
That's
would wave at the concierge going by, be like, Jeremy, I forgot my keys. I'll be right back. And they would be like, oh my God. And then they called us oh my God, in this building that we lived in Austin, they called us the eclectic couple from the 6th floor. So I didn't know how to really take that. I was like, I think eclectic is like a really nice way of saying those two crazy people that smell like incense and sandalwood and Palo Santo. And there's like, smells coming from
probably for especially the Texas crowd. Like it's just a little. There we're like, this is different.
It's different. We have a great, great spiritual wellness community here that I've kind of immersed myself in now, which is really nice. Texas is really cool. It's got a powerful energy. Everything is bigger here, that's for sure, and
Yeah.
more expensive, and there's a lot of space, and it's been a nice
Yeah,
change.
huge contrast from New York where everything's
Yeah, I do miss New York a lot. We have a small presence there with our collective with the business, but I miss being in the energy. So I hope to, if anybody's watching this or listening to this and is looking to share an apartment with some other small business owners, please let me know. We can share supplies and do events. That
Yeah,
would be the dream. So we'll see. Whatever me and Red, we always look at each other and we say, you know what, whatever we say we do, we do. Sometimes it takes longer.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
So, it's just like if you have a dream or something like that, like just keep saying it out loud because you just don't know when it could happen, and then it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, okay, it finally happened. Like, hell yeah, we did it.
Yeah, when you put it out there and you like your heart's in it and you just like receive it, I feel like the pieces fall into place. Like someone
Yeah.
will end up calling you randomly and be like, "Oh, by the way, this apartment in New York." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's like what? Even like I mean my biggest kind of like dream for years has just been to like find like a business partner that was just me in another body, and then I find this girl in Africa.
You
Oh, that's
see?
so weird. Like, who would have thought? And I swore, I was like, because I used to live, I traveled around a bit. I used to actually live in New York, and then I moved to LA, and I had a really bad experience there. I was I was too like naive. I was like 23, and a girl from South Africa with just no street smart. Like it was not a good place for me. So I swore I would never go back. I was like, never. I will never go back there. And then, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. I meet her and we're like, let's go. Let's make this business. And like I just wanted to touch on what you said about like just speak your dreams out loud. There is
Mm.
so much power in our words, in it's just crazy. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Every part of my life I have manifested, and I did it unconsciously in the beginning, and I got a lot of painful lessons. But when you
Mm.
start to realize that and you make the shift in your language and you choose consciously actually what's going to come out of your mouth. Sometimes, I still make mistakes with that, but there is so much power in
Hmm.
our speech. Our, words create worlds. And our
Yeah,
body is
it's
always listening. Our body
the
is
internal
always listening.
vibration.
Yeah.
Especially the thing that I'm trying to not say now is I don't have time,
That is,
because I've said that a lot lately, and it's like, shit, I don't have time, and then it's like, instead of just saying, I don't know, like I'm trying to find that replacement. It's almost like we
yeah.
need to rewire the brain as, let me see what I can do, or something like that, like something where I'm actually like telling my nervous system, like, hey, let's see what we can do, instead of being like, I don't have time. And then I know I
Yeah.
want to do it. So then the entire experience almost becomes a struggle before it starts,
Yeah.
instead of just saying, hey, let me see what I can do. And then just like taking your
Yeah.
time with it.
Yeah.
Because if we tell ourselves like we don't have time or we don't have the resources, that's something that I really really focus on now in our events and in our meditations and in my community, is that imagining your wildest dreams with no financial or geographical, or I don't know if that's a word, no financial limitation, no geography, like no travel limitation, and no health limitation.
Yeah.
Mm.
Imagining yourself, as that highest representation of pure consciousness, of pure just limitlessness. And it's really hard to do that. I mean, it is hard to think about things like as if you could do whatever you wanted and embody the characteristics of what it would take to do that as if it was happening right now. It's like this surge of electricity, of power. And if we can do
Yeah.
that for even for 30 seconds per day, this is a muscle that we build. It's something that I'm working on, because that's something that I suffer with, is limitations of the mind. Even I suffer with that, with limitations on, where my business could go, or the freedom that Red and I could feel.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're so limited, even in our own mind. It's like the one place that we can control, and it's the place that we're limited the most. It's so weird.
Yeah. We literally have a mini course called Shattering Limiting Beliefs.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Because
It's a
especially like
thing.
when we come out of the womb, we see life and we're like, I want to, especially as a little kid, I'm going to be a singer. Like, there's no, why wouldn't I? Like, that's it, period. Like, that's all our brain is, and we're seeing it. And I remember being younger and like picturing music videos, like embodying all of that, and there was no reason not to. And then you get older and it's like, well, well, location, well, finances, well, this, well, that. And so then we have to change ourselves back to our childlike selves. And for me it's almost like there's like biblical principles there too, and my spirituality comes into that, where it's like talks about being like a child. Like it's that essence of the pure, like you said, like the phone, the picture, like that.
Mm.
And so like getting back to that little girl and giving her like the credit for the where she was in the place where she just believed that she could do anything.
The confidence to show up like that and take pictures and smile.
Yes, you know,
Like, I look great today. Like, I'm dressed up. And, we call this the Master Manifester, right? And this is inspired by, one of my mentors from Soma Breath, Niraj Naik. And he has this amazing meditation that I do that brings you back into your dreamlike state as a child.
love that.
Because it's when we were little, every single moment of our day was dreamlike. I just remember like creating a Barbie pool on cement one time.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'll never forget this moment. I was like, in my head, there was a pool and I had a slide and the people were jumping in it and there was splashing and I could like hear the water. And it was just like, we can still do that. We can still be creative. And I think it's especially important. I think that we don't have kids, so we don't have that. I think if you do have kids, you might be more around that childlike, dreamlike phase because you get to play with the kids, or if you work with kids, you get to be like, you see the imagination all the time. I feel like if you're a lonely entrepreneur like myself. No, I'm kidding. Like, if you are not in that, like, quote unquote, traditional family setup or whatever, sometimes I think you have to work a little harder on that. And I think it's really important because we can get really hardened by the outside world. It's almost like a conditioning, right? Like the what shoulds, the what coulds, the what ifs. What if I did that? I mean, when you start doing that, I mean, you might as well just like go to bed, turn off the lights and go to bed because there's nothing we can do about that. But we spend a lot of time in that energy. So yeah, just about kind of like releasing that and coming back to that master manifester state, that dreamlike state that we were like kids. And I think that love comes out of that too.
Yeah.
Right. Because like, those first loves, or when you have like a crush on somebody,
Yes.
or like we like pass a note to somebody and you're like, oh my God, your life is hanging in the balance.
Mhm.
You don't know what could happen. Like everything is riding on this moment and it's so exciting. It's like bringing back that excitement. And I think that we can, and we have to work harder at doing it now. And that's just the fact. And I think that that's okay. So thank you for people like you guys who really bring this topic out in the open and accessible for people, because I think we can make it into like bite-sized nuggets that people can really ingest. Because for some people, you're going to tell people like, even I have family members that if you told them like, hey, like sit down and think about what you truly want and who you truly are, they'd be like, I don't got time for that. I have to go to work. And that's going to be what you hear from, the majority of people. I don't have time for that. I have to go to work. I have to pay my bills. And unfortunately, that's the narrative in most of the world. And it's our job as a new consciousness, as this new wokeness, as this new earth is coming. And I'm not like that crazy woo woo, but there is a new earth coming because there's a lot of woke people. There's a lot of consciousness happening, and self-care and health and wellness. This is beginning to pop up in areas where we would have never seen it before. Even in like medical treatments, we were in this beautiful medical spa yesterday. We got a new account with some of our products in this gorgeous medical spa, and they're creating ceremony out of treatments. They're creating softness and ritual in areas that used to be stale and cold and hard. And it's just about, kindness.
Yeah.
And I think that kindness and smiling, that already breaks down the barrier, and laughter breaks it down, and it just kind of opens us up. And I think if you have a gift to do that, it's really your duty to share it with others, because not everybody has that, but everybody needs it. So it's really important to have these conversations and to inspire people to just like let it go. It's not that serious. We're alive. Another great friend of mine has this wonderful saying that is, did you take your dose of vitamin G today? The vitamin gratitude. And it's really important because gratitude is the one emotion that's actually been proven by science to create new neural pathways of the mind. We can actually instantly drop into joy.
Mm-hmm. You can't stay mad when you're glad.
You can't.
Do it.
You can. So, well, I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you.
I'm grateful for you.
Same.
This has been just incredible. And yeah, I think it's just it's incredible what we are capable of if we learn how to rewire our brains and just choose to change our perspective. You know, perception is literally everything. And I have one of my clients actually I was talking to the other day, and it was like, he's sitting there and was just like, I'm just lucky. And this is a man who like has had like health conditions, like a heart condition, his wife died, his like has gone
Right.
through so many
It's
things.
unbelievable how people
I'm
are,
just
can
a really
be.
blessed, lucky person. And I'm just like, yes, though, yes, like that,
Right.
and in the same way, you can have someone who's literally like never had really anything too bad happen, but they're sitting there just like, I'm just really unlucky. My car, stalled today. And, it's like, really though, because you seem to like, there's all these other things you could be focusing
I
on.
know. I
And it's
know.
incredible. And those people are so happy, and everything they touch does turn to gold. You know what I mean? Like his marriage was phenomenal that he did have. And I'm sure his next
Right.
relationship is going to be phenomenal because it's constantly the glass is half empty or half full, not empty. And if you're constantly looking at life from that half full perspective, it just can't be bad because you're just excited about what you do have.
Yeah.
And then doors open that, like you said, like you can't even make this stuff up, like the way things that just come into your life. And so there's no use sitting around and stressing about things because you never could have even imagined that guy would be standing outside of your apartment. So you could sit there
I
all day and
know.
be like, which app should I go to? Or should I go like sit at restaurants to meet a guy? Or should you never in your mind would have been like, I know what I should do.
I
Exactly.
should go outside to the park.
You know?
Yes, when I have more time, I want to write this down into a book. Actually, we just had a book that was published, but it was just a contribution and more of like a subtle shift, health and wellness, self-help type book called Sacred Spaces. But we also, now I have this idea to weave together this being really inspired by this childlike, dreamlike state is like weaving together a story that's half fantasy, half reality, and just making it like epically entertaining, kind of like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. Do you guys remember that? Like do something
Yeah.
like that, but more like this like spiritual journey through love and consciousness and Palo Santo and
Mm.
travel, and just kind of making it this combination of, I had this a dream that would be like a combination of like Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert and, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And I'm forgetting the name of the author, but it would be kind of this like epic adventure. And then my business mind is like, and don't give them all at once because we got to do volume 2. And then we got to have volume 2. And then we could do a Netflix show. It's like, but I love to tell stories and I love to share the joy that I felt because it's also not easy. Having a relationship also can be, it's challenging, and it's all about compromise and just about also knowing.
Yeah, I would say that's my like number one question for you to take away throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, just the most epic, beautiful beginning and story throughout. But what is your number one thing that you would say has gotten you guys to 11 years, like through the hard times and through the? I'm sure there's been, there's always people go through stuff. What is the thing that has kept that fire alive throughout these 11 years?
Compromise and communication and acceptance for me. And I know that some people have different opinions of like, well, I'm not going to compromise that.
Yeah.
Well, when you're in a really true bonded union in life, sometimes we have to compromise. It doesn't mean that you have to sell yourself short, but you have to compromise. And when I said earlier about that codependency, sometimes, you can have a beautiful husband or a beautiful partner or whoever it is, a girlfriend, whatever, but it's okay to have relationships outside of the marriage that fulfill those other needs. Like if your partner hates to go shopping, like why are you dragging them and making this miserable existence for both of you that are just going to end up in a fight? Like just don't do that with them. Go out with your friends and do that. Like learn where the best parts of each other are and highlight that. It's the same like running a business. You delegate the tasks to the people that know how to do them best.
Yeah.
Right? Also, communication, number one. And this is something that I have had to work on the most because I run a little hot and I can get mad and I like raise my voice and then I get over it really quick, and that's just a character trait also that it's like, what are you talking about? Yes. I'm like,
right? Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not doing that. And then like literally 7 minutes later, I'll come and I'll be like, you know what? You're right. I think that we should do that. And I give him the satisfaction of saying, and you're always right. You know, that's like my kind of way of apologizing. But I would say communication is number one, and then compromise number two. Because if you communicate about the situation, you don't even need to compromise because you know each other's true feelings. And don't cover things up because it always comes to bite you in the ass later. Like if I would have saved ourselves some major arguments if I would have just set my boundaries and set my needs out earlier.
Mm,
So people aren't psychics, they aren't mind readers.
yes.
Sometimes we feel like we live with a person in a close space for so many years that we have this illusion that they know what we're thinking. And it's just not the truth.
Yeah.
And in the end, intrinsically, people, we are kind and genuine and we want to please each other. So it's like allowing that person to do that, also being open to receive. Sometimes it can be harder to receive than it is to give, too. So it's like being open to receive is also really nice. And then there's that beautiful balance of different energies, right? The feminine, the masculine, and just kind of playing with that and learning how you can co create together. But definitely talking is so important, and just being calm and listening and letting people finish and just kind of like thinking about it and taking time to respond. And these are skills that take time in a relationship, you know, especially if there's something that happens that's, you know, if you get into a big fight, it takes space, you know, if you can, because time, a little space apart, that's what we've learned too. It's like if something happens, you know, now we have this thing where we like to say to each other, I'm not a, so that way there's like a very clear stop. Like, you know what, anything that you say from this moment forward, it's at your own risk, because I have told you that I'm really not available because I don't have the bandwidth.
Yes. And
So
that's
yeah.
good self-awareness.
Yeah, for sure. And try not to spend, you know, you never know what could happen in life. So try to make sure to communicate that love as often as possible. You know, don't go to bed mad because it's not good for our own nervous systems. So if you don't want to do it for the other person, do it for yourself, because it's that deep rooted stress and anger that causes the disease in our bodies, of our mind and everything. And so it took me some time to learn that. So if you can learn it sooner, that's
Yeah. Well,
great.
thank you. That's great. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you sharing your energy and your knowledge and your love with us today. And
Thank
I'm so
you.
excited to see where you guys go next on this like vast
Hmm.
adventure and
We're
hear.
gonna have to document it, I think. We'll see. I don't know if I can get
Yeah.
them on social, but I'll get at least like the corner, you know, the back of the head and stuff like this. This is
Yeah.
good for him. But yeah, I look forward to that very much.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
Thank everyone for watching, for listening, and I will tag Mimi's Instagram in the caption. Ciao.
Bye.